In this video, we're going to begin the process of adding details to our drone. All right, so let's go ahead and add the seams into our drone. And we're going to do this pretty simply, but we need to make sure that we're doing it correctly and watching out for existing geometry. So looking at this, it would make sense for me to go ahead and add an edge right here into the middle. Let me turn off that cage. Actually, let me turn it back on. I changed the colors in between just to make it easier to look at, but it's also showing the topology of the object smoothed. So let me hit F4 to turn that off. So looking at that, I just want to, let me turn off Open Subdiv. Looking at this, you'll see that we have this edge right here that goes all the way through the middle. And you might think that we would want to use chamfer to split that, but what would happen is we would have a problem with the topology right here. So what I would want to do instead is to go ahead and add a loop just above it. So let's go ahead and add it just above. And actually, let me add it up here and then hit Control Alt and then left click and drag that Swift loop and pull that down so that way it conforms perfectly to the topology below it. So now that we have that edge, let's go ahead and go to polygon mode. Let's right click to turn on Swift loop and let's select this polygon. Now, it might show up a little odd. It might look like it's trying to select all of those edges, but we are in polygon mode. Typically, what's happening here is because of the crease set. Go ahead and turn that off, and you'll see that we can see the shaded polygon. Now, if it's still not shaded, hit F2, and that might help as well. Now, let's go ahead and hold down Shift, select the next polygon in line, and that will select all the way around, including above where that battery pack is supposed to plug into. And we're going to use extrude, and we're going to do by local normal, and let's go into a negative direction. It would make sense to do something like -0.2, something like that. And if we wanted, we might even go just a little bit deeper into that. So looking at this, it feels pretty good. I think that's good. So let's go ahead and hit OK on that. So now that we have that detail in, let's go ahead and add the same detail around this piece here. Now we could do this a little bit differently. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use Edit and Swift Loop, and let's go to our front view, and I'm going to just drop it onto there, and then I'm going to hold down Control and Alt and then left click and drop this down right about to the center of the detail that we see there. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my left view. Let me add another one here and then hold down Control Alt, drop this down, and then let's go back to our front view. Let's go to the other side. Control Alt, drag it down, and then let's hit V and then R to go to our right view, and then let's drop it, and then Control Alt and drop that down. Now I need to make sure that all of these are perfectly in line with one another on all four sides. So I'm going to go to my front view, and then I'm going to go to vertex mode, right click, and then I'm going to select all of those vertices. So hit F3 so you can see through it. And then select all of these, Control, and select those. And let's use Make Planar. And we're going to make planar in the Y direction, but let's make sure we're constraining to the edge so it doesn't actually change the geometry, and click Y. So now that's in place, let's hit F3. That looks good. And then I'm going to hold down Control. Actually, you know what? Let's just go to edge mode. So let's hit 2 on the keyboard. Double click on that edge there. And let's do that all the way around. And then let's use the chamfer tool. And let's make sure that we only have one segment. Let's pull this down. And there we go. Now it looks like it's leaving the original. I think that might be because of the other pieces there. Let's go ahead and do 0.1 and then hit OK. So that's a little confusing, but I'm not really sure why that's happening, so I'm just going to continue. It shouldn't be happening like that, but it might be because of all the modifiers that we have applied to it. And then there we go. We have all of these, and then what we'll do is we'll use extrude. And we're going to do extrude in a negative direction using the local normal. Hit OK. And there we go. We have that detail now. So let's go ahead and back up. Let's make sure that we don't have anything else on the drone that we need to create. I have the pieces here for the feet here. I think those are great the way they are. We could go ahead and create like a little inset on all of those. To do this, it might be a little tricky to do, but we could go to Edge Mode, hold down Shift, and select that ring. And actually, let's just select one of them and then hit ring. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. Control ring, and then let's go over here. And then finally the last one. And then what we'll do is we'll use connect. And then on that connect, we can slide that up or down. Let's bring it a little bit closer to the feet. And I just want to make sure that that is on all of the pieces, and I believe it is. So, yep, it looks good. So let's hit OK on that, and then let's select polygon mode, and then just select all those polygons all the way around. Okay, and then what we'll do is we'll extrude that into that bottom part there. Sometimes if you're using the control or the scroll wheel to zoom in and out, if you hold down Alt and then zoom, that will give you a smaller increment of zooming. So now with that, let's use extrude, and we're going to extrude it in negative direction. And we want to make sure that we are doing local. We could try group, but I think local is going to give us the best result. Now again, it's kind of showing the preview of where it was at before. Let's just hit OK, and you'll see that it extrudes upward. Perfect. So now that's all of the details that we have on the drone, except for the back here. Now the back is going to be a little bit different. We're going to actually have to do something a little bit different than what we're used to doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take the polygons that are going to be the battery pack, and I'm going to hold down Shift, and I'm going to drag that off of there. But before I do that, really quickly, let's make sure that the edge constraints are turned off. Hold down Shift and then pull that back. We want to make that its own object. So I'm just going to call this battery and hit enter. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select those polygons again on the original object and then delete them. So let's hit delete there. And then I'm going to go to border mode, because that is an open polygon now. Watch this. If I grab my scale tool and then I hold down Shift, scale that in, I'm going to create a nice little rim there. And then I'm going to grab my move tool. I'm going to hold down Shift again and then drag that into the mesh. And that's going to create a nice little hole there for this battery pack to fit into. Now I can actually take that battery pack, go to edge mode. Actually, let's do border mode on it, and let's select the border. Go ahead and hit F4 so you can see the wireframe. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to scale that in a little bit, just like that. And then I'm going to grab my move tool, hitting W, hold down Shift, and drag that in that into that. And then I can now grab this object. Let me go ahead and use the hierarchy and affect the pivot, center it to the object. And then we can actually move this in and out there. So I'm just going to put it pretty close to where it's flush up against that. And so now we have a separate object for our battery that you could actually slide in or out. And whenever this smooths out, we're going to get a nice round shape there. And it will create this nice little rim. Now the battery is going to have to do the same thing. So let's add the open subdiv to it. And I'll go ahead and I'll leave this open subdiv separate. It doesn't have to be added. And you can kind of see how it's going to start to fit into that and how it's going to be shaped. So now what I want to do is I want to talk about the process of creasing edges, because we've added these nice little details and they've really set off the model. But the only problem that I have now is that some of the creases are really mushy and a little too curved. And I want to talk about how to control that next using crease set modifiers.